I was the perfect husband, providing her with everything she dreamed of. Meanwhile, she was making plans with another man. But you know what? She's going to regret it. Hello, friends. Thank you for visiting the channel. Today I want to share with you a story that will probably make you rethink many things in relationships. This is a real story about betrayal, about how I found out that everything I believed was a lie. But most importantly, it's not just a story about betrayal, it's about how I found the strength to change my life despite everything. I have always considered myself lucky. Not everyone finds true love, but I was sure I had found it in Sarah. She was not just my wife, she was my best friend. My support, the person I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. Together we built our future, overcame difficulties, shared joys. We had a cozy home, travel plans, even shared traditions that seemed so special to just the two of us. Of course, as in any marriage, we had our difficulties. But I never doubted her devotion. Sarah often talked about her childhood friend, Daniel. He had been a part of her life since she was a little girl. They grew up together, went to the same school, shared secrets. She always assured me that their relationship was purely friendly, that he was like a brother to her. And I believed her. Daniel appeared in our lives from time to time. Sometimes we would meet together. He would come to birthdays and holidays. I never felt envy or jealousy. He was friendly, we communicated normally, and to be honest, I didn't see him as a threat. Sarah always spoke openly about him, so I had no reason to doubt, but something changed. At first, it was subtle. She started spending more time with him than usual. At first it was lunches once a month, then it became weekly meetings. She started talking about him more often than before. But most importantly, she changed. I couldn't say exactly what was wrong, but my intuition told me that something was going on. She became more withdrawn, her phone was constantly in her hands, she often received messages and smiled when she read them. When I asked who was writing, she would answer evasively or quickly change the subject. I remember the evening when I first felt really worried. We were sitting at home, watching a movie. She received a message, quickly glanced at the screen and put the phone down. It was not like her. She had never hidden her phone before. I pretended not to notice, but I had this strange feeling in my head that something was slipping out of my control. The next day, she said she would meet Daniel after work. I nodded, trying to look indifferent, although suspicion was already building inside me. She came back late, said they had just had a long talk, and quickly went to the shower. I sat in the living room, looking at her phone on the table, and hesitated. I wasn't the type to check my wife's phone, it didn't seem right. But this suspicion, this uneasy feeling, it did not let me rest. I picked up the phone, but it was locked. She had never changed the password before, but now it was different. I couldn't sleep that night, something was happening. And I had to find out what it was. I tried to convince myself that it was all just my imagination. That Sarah was really just talking to Daniel like she used to. That she wasn't hiding anything. But the more I tried to rationalize her behavior, the more I felt that something was wrong. I couldn't say exactly what was wrong, but my intuition told me that something was going on. She became more withdrawn, her phone was constantly in her hands, she often received messages and smiled when she read them. When I asked who was writing, she would answer evasively or quickly change the subject. I remember the evening when I first felt really worried. We were sitting at home, watching a movie. She received a message, quickly glanced at the screen and put the phone down. It was not like her. She had never hidden her phone before. I pretended not to notice, but I had this strange feeling in my head that something was slipping out of my control. The next day, she said she would meet Daniel after work. I nodded, trying to look indifferent, although suspicion was already building inside me. She came back late, said they had just had a long talk, and quickly went to the shower. I sat in the living room, looking at her phone on the table, and hesitated. I wasn't the type to check my wife's phone. It didn't seem right. But this suspicion, this uneasy feeling, it did not let me rest. I picked up the phone, but it was locked. She had never changed the password before, but now it was different. I couldn't sleep that night, something was happening. And I had to find out what it was. I tried to convince myself that it was all just my imagination. That Sarah was really just talking to Daniel like she used to, that she wasn't hiding anything. But the more I tried to rationalize her behavior, the more I felt that something was wrong. When she came home, I acted as if nothing had happened. I hugged her, kissed her on the forehead, and asked her how her evening was. She answered without hesitation. It was very busy. I'm so tired. She didn't even stop to think of a better lie. I slept very little that night. The next day I started preparing. I knew it was going to be a difficult road ahead, but I had to find out the truth. And if she was cheating, I would destroy her lies to the ground. The next few days were a game of pretense for me. I forced myself to smile when she came into the kitchen with a cup of coffee. I hugged her when she came home from work, pretending I didn't suspect anything. She didn't even realize that I was analyzing her every move, every word, every look like a detective investigating the most important case of her life. I knew that if I wanted to get to the bottom of the truth, I needed concrete evidence. And although the idea of digging into her personal space was disgusting, I couldn't just sit there and wait for her to confess. So I decided to act. She always carried her phone with her, but left her laptop at home. I knew there were answers there. And one evening I got my chance. She went to the shower, leaving her laptop open on the kitchen table. My hands were shaking as I approached it. My heart was pounding in my chest so loudly that I thought she could hear it even over the sound of the water in the bathroom. I pressed the touch panel and the screen lit up. A new message flashed in the corner of the window. Sender, Daniel. Text, I can't wait for you to finally tell him the truth. How much longer are we going to hide it? It was as if my brain refused to accept what I was reading. I read it again. Then again. What should I say? What are they hiding? I opened the chat, a stream of messages. Hundreds of them. Months of correspondence. Daniel, when are you going to tell him? It's not fair anymore. I don't want to be just your secret. I know it's hard, but he deserves to know. Sarah, I just don't know how to do it. I'm afraid he won't forgive me. I thought it would go away, but I can't lie anymore. Each word hit me like a punch in the stomach. I could feel my legs giving out. My fingers clenched into a fist. I wanted to throw the damned laptop against the wall, smash it into small pieces. But I forced myself to breathe steadily. I continued to read. Daniel, we could have been together a long time ago if it weren't for him. Me, for him, I was just an obstacle. Sarah, I know. I know. But I didn't want to hurt him. I laughed. Bitterly. Painfully. She didn't want to hurt me. But she had already done it. I scrolled through the chat and with each new message I felt something inside me break. She was writing to him about me, how I was trying to be a good husband. How I didn't suspect anything. How I had always trusted her, and the worst part was, Daniel, I don't want him to just leave. You know we have a plan. A plan? What the hell kind of plan? I could feel the sweat on my forehead. What if this wasn't just a betrayal? What if there was more to it than that? I needed to know. I quickly took screenshots of the messages and sent them to my email. No sooner had I finished than I heard her walking. I instantly closed my laptop and pretended to just scroll through my phone. She walked into the kitchen with a towel over her head, smiling. She looked so relaxed. She had no idea that I knew. "What are you doing?" she asked, leaning over to kiss me on the cheek. I forced myself not to pull away. "Just flipping through the news," I answered in a calm tone. She took the laptop, opened it, quickly checked something, and then closed it again. I saw her face tense for a second. Did she suspect something? "I'm so tired today," she said, stretching. "Shall we go to bed?" I smiled back at her. Yes, of course. But I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, feeling her breathing next to me, her hand on my shoulder, as if she still loved me. But I knew the truth. I knew that our marriage was a lie, and I knew that this was only the beginning. I couldn't just sit there and wait. I had to get to the bottom of it. The correspondence between Sarah and Daniel only confirmed my worst suspicions, but I needed more. I wanted to know all the details. I wanted to know how long it had been going on, what they had planned, and most importantly, how far it had gone. I started with her phone. Sarah never left it unattended, but I noticed that she often fell asleep with it in her hand. So that night, when she was sound asleep, I gently reached for it. It locked. Expected, but I knew her. I knew she wasn't the type to come up with complicated passwords. I entered our wedding date. No, I entered her birthday. No, I entered 12/21, our old password for everything. The phone unlocked, my heart was racing. I went to her gallery. Hundreds of photos. Most were ordinary, but some, pictures of Daniel. They were together at dinners. They're holding hands. She smiles at him like she hasn't smiled at me in a long time. A photo from a hotel room. I felt everything inside me shrink. I went to her messages. She kept deleting them, but I found a few saved voice messages. I turned on one of them, speaker high volume. Sarah, whispering, "I'm with him tonight, but I'm thinking about you." I threw up. I turned off my phone and took a deep breath. I couldn't lose control. Instead, I decided to keep digging. The next day, when Sarah went to take a shower, I checked her bank statements. I noticed strange payments, expensive restaurants, hotels, travel that I knew nothing about, and worst of all, 2 tickets to Paris. She had bought them a week before. And my name was not among the passengers. I felt a cold sweat break out on my back. Paris. She said she was going on a business trip. A lie. I decided not to stop. I hired a private detective. 2 days later he sent me the evidence. Photos. Her and Daniel in a restaurant. They're in a car together. He's kissing her. I didn't need anything else. It was not just a suspicion. It was a reality. I had been betrayed, and now, knowing this, I decided, I will not just be a victim. I will strike back. I thought that after seeing the photos, hearing their voice messages, something would change. That she would start to behave a little more carefully. But no. She didn't even try to hide it. I started to look closely at everything she did. Her every action now had a meaning that I hadn't noticed before. She stopped being interested in my affairs. She used to ask me how my day was, at least as a formality. Now she had no interest. She would sit across from me at the table, flipping through her phone. And not even pretend to listen when I spoke. She also started spending a lot more money. Sarah used to be quite frugal. We used to plan our expenses and save for the future. But in recent months, everything has changed. Expensive restaurants, cosmetics, a new wardrobe. She even bought herself an expensive suitcase, although a few months ago she said that her old one was fine. I checked her bank statements again. I saw payments to a hotel where she had supposedly never been, dinners at restaurants I hadn't taken her to, branded gifts she didn't buy for me. I started to put together a picture. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was using me to pay for her relationship with him. And the worst part was that she didn't even try to hide it. I decided to check out her car. One day, when she was in the shower, I went out to the garage and opened the glove compartment. I didn't expect to find anything specific, but what I saw shocked me. A receipt from a jewelry store, a ring. She had bought Daniel a ring. I felt a wave of rage wash over me. She wasn't just being unfaithful. She was planning a future with him, and she was doing it with my money. I went back into the house and heard her coming out of the bathroom. She came up to me, hugged me, and kissed me on the cheek. "You look so tense today. Is everything okay?" I almost laughed. I wanted to tell her everything right to her face. I wanted to ask her how she even sleeps in our bed after spending nights with him. But no, I didn't give her that luxury. I smiled and answered, "Yes, everything is fine." She didn't even realize that now I knew every lie she told. But it was not just a betrayal, it was a game, and I decided to play better than her. I could have made a scene. I could have made a scandal, smashed her phone, yelled at her, and thrown out all the anger that was boiling inside me. But what would be the point? She would have made excuses. She would try to deny everything, make up another lie to save her own skin. I knew that such a woman did not deserve my emotions. She deserved something better, a real breakdown. I sat down in my office and began to draw up a plan. I started with the simplest thing, money. She was used to me covering all the expenses. Credit cards, bills, gifts, I paid for all of it. And what's most disgusting is that she didn't even hide it. I blocked all her cards. The next day she came home furious. "Something's wrong with my card," she said, throwing her bag on the table. I wanted to pay, but it doesn't work. I looked at her calmly. "Maybe the bank is blocking something." She shrugged her shoulders. Not even suspecting me, I watched as she dialed the bank's number, trying to find out what had happened. I knew she couldn't find out anything, because I had blocked everything myself. The next step was the divorce papers. I sent them to a lawyer the same day. But that was not enough. I wanted her to feel the same humiliation I felt. I waited for her to go back to him. And when she packed her suitcase, when she said she was going to see a friend, I just nodded and even kissed her on the cheek. "Be careful, my love," I said. She did not even suspect that this game was over. As soon as she left the house, I opened my laptop and took action. First, I deleted our joint accounts. Netflix, Spotify, Amazon, everything we shared together was gone. Second, I changed the locks. Yes, I just called a handyman and put new door locks so she couldn't even get in. I took her things, packed them in boxes and sent them to Daniel. I wanted him to realize that she was now his problem, but the best was yet to come. I wrote her a message. "Honey, I think it's time for a change. I packed your things. They are at Daniel's. I hope you find happiness. P.S. Your accounts are closed. I will not pay them anymore. Good luck." And he turned off the phone. I knew that panic would soon set in. I knew that soon she would realize that she was left with nothing, and that moment was the sweetest in my life. For almost 2 hours, I sat in my chair, looking at my phone off, and imagined what was happening on the other side of the city. I could see her eyes widen when she realized her cards didn't work. I imagined her trying to book a hotel room or buy dinner, but the terminal rejected it. I knew she would call me again and again because she was not used to being rejected, and then, just as I predicted, the phone came to life, an incoming call. "Kate," I smiled. She didn't even try to text me, she just called me. I picked up the phone but didn't say anything. "What's going on?" Her voice was on the verge of hysteria. "Why don't my cards work? I can't pay for anything." I have a restaurant bill here and my card is blocked. I was still silent, enjoying the moment. Mike. Is there a problem with the bank? Did you hear that? Maybe, I finally said calmly. I can't pay the bill. She was almost screaming. What am I going to do? I could hardly contain my laughter. Call Daniel. There was a few seconds of silence. I imagined her face changing, clutching the phone in her hands, realizing that I knew everything. What? Her voice became quieter. Tell him to pay for you. After all, you're a couple, aren't you, Mike? She sounded pleading. I didn't let her finish. I'm not paying for your life anymore. It's over, and I hung up the phone. 5 minutes of silence, and then, a new call, an incoming call. Kate, again. And again. And again. She called 14 times, then came the messages. Mike, this is some kind of misunderstanding, please talk to me. Why are you doing this? I can explain everything. I made a mistake, but we can fix it. I didn't answer. I just blocked her number, but that was only the beginning of her downfall. The next morning I woke up to another call, this time from Daniel. I picked up the phone and heard a man's voice on the line, tense and angry. Are you crazy? You threw her out on the street. I laughed. I just sent her to where she was supposed to be from the beginning. To you. He stopped talking. Or maybe you don't want her with you. His silence said more than any words. He didn't want her. He wanted an affair. He wanted a fling. He wanted a thrill but not a real commitment. And now Kate was left with nothing. No me. No money. No stability, and, it seems, without Daniel. 2. It was even better than I could have imagined. I smiled, hung up the phone, and went to breakfast. Life was just beginning. I like to think that there is a certain balance in the universe. That if you betray, manipulate, and use people, then sooner or later it will boomerang back to you. But even I didn't expect it to happen so quickly. The next morning I woke up later than usual. It was strange not to feel stressed. No suspicions, no doubts, no thoughts about what was going on behind my back. For the first time in months, if not years, I felt calm. I made coffee, turned on some music, made myself breakfast and sat down at the table. And that's when I saw the message. 30 new messages from Kate, 5 missed calls from her mom, 2 voicemails from Daniel. I didn't even listen to them, but then another message came. Mike, please, at least listen to me. It's not what you think. I smiled. It's not what I think. Really? I opened her chat anyway. Just for fun. I know I made a terrible mistake. But you have to understand, it wasn't that simple. I was confused. I didn't want to lie to you, but I was afraid you wouldn't understand. It was even funny. I need to talk to you. I can't be with Daniel. He's not what he seemed. I made a terrible choice. Now this is interesting. I picked up the phone and called Jason, a colleague of mine who worked in finance. Mike, my brother, I heard that you're going through a difficult period. No, I'm having a great time. I just want to know one thing. Tell me, can you run a financial check on someone? I want to know if he has money. Jason laughed. Daniel, you're a quick study. 10 minutes later, he called back. Bro, you're not gonna believe this. He's in debt, he's got a mortgage that's overdue, he's got a negative balance. He doesn't even pay his rent on time. I smiled. That's why she's panicking. She realized that she had bet on a losing player. A few days later, I ran into Emma, a mutual friend with Kate. We were never very close, but she knew everything that was going on in Kate's life. I heard that you're a bachelor now. She said, ordering coffee next to me. I heard that Kate was too. Emma laughed. Oh, yeah. Daniel wouldn't even let her stay with him for more than 3 days. He said he wasn't ready for such a serious relationship. Serious? I took a sip of coffee. They were supposed to be together for life. Emma shrugged her shoulders. Well, now he's changed his mind. I pretended to be at least a little concerned. And what's she doing, sleeping at her parents' house? They're not too happy about it, by the way. You know they've always loved you. Oh, I knew that. And the job, she hasn't found one yet. She's used to your comfortable life, and now, well, she'll have to get something simple. I thanked Emma for the conversation and left. I knew this day would come. She thought leaving me was hitting the jackpot, but now she was sitting in her old room in her parents' house, with no money, no lover, no future. This was the moment when life gave her what she deserved. I went home, poured myself a whiskey, went out on the balcony and breathed in the night air. I had won, and for the first time in a long time, I was truly free. I packed my suitcase in exactly 10 minutes. No thinking, no hesitation. I knew it was exactly what I needed. I had bought a plane ticket to Italy a few weeks ago, but I wasn't even sure I was going to go. It was one of those things that you do on emotion, but then put it off. But now everything fell into place. I locked the door of my apartment, called a taxi, and went to the airport. 12 hours later, I was already standing in a small town on the Amalfi Coast. I rented a hotel room overlooking the sea, threw my backpack on the bed, went out onto the balcony and breathed in the air of new life, a life without lies. Without pain. Without her betrayal. I didn't feel angry. On the contrary, I didn't even feel sorry. To be honest, I was grateful. If it wasn't for her betrayal, I would have continued to live in this illusion and not allowed myself to be truly happy. I ordered a coffee in a small cafe on the beach, sat down at a table and just watched the people, couples in love holding hands, families laughing and taking pictures by the beach, lonely travelers, like me, just enjoying the moment. I opened my laptop and wrote an email to my boss. I have made a decision. I'm not going back to work. Thank you for everything, but now I live for myself. I pressed send and for the first time in many years felt absolute freedom. In the evening, I went to a local bar. What would you like to drink? The bartender asked, a young girl with dark eyes and a slight smile. Something strong, but not too much. She put a glass in front of me. This is what you need for a good start. I picked up the drink and smiled. A new beginning? Yeah, that sounds good. I took the first sip and realized I lost my wife, but I found myself. I had survived a betrayal, but I had discovered new opportunities. I had left everything behind. But something truly worth living was waiting for me. And do you know what? I don't look back anymore. I would like to thank you for sharing your time and listening to my story to the end. If it touched you, don't forget to like and share the video with your friends. Your subscriptions help the channel grow, and they help me continue to create even more interesting stories for you. So if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. I'm always happy to see you here on my channel. See you in the next video.